Hi, this is Jeremiah Semler, and this is my executive summary. I thank you all for taking a look at it. I apologize for being late. I had many technological problems yesterday, and I could not quite pull it together, but I think I have it set now, and I look forward to watching all of your guys's. Thank you. When it came time to choose a question for this research project, I thought long and hard. I work with special education students at a level 4 setting. It's all primarily emotional and behavioral students. We have lots of acting out behavior, lots of drug use, lots of rough home life. Pretty much all of our students are low SES. So I wanted something that could benefit my kids in the classroom. Oftentimes I have more kids absent than I have in the classroom. So what I'm teaching changes constantly, and I can't always teach in a straightforward fashion or follow a timeline, because one week I might have 3 kids, or one day I might have 3 kids, the next day I might have 2 kids in the class, but they're totally different kids, and then the next day I have everybody, and it's quite a big juggling match. So I decided on researching what effective formative assessment looks like, because this will give me the opportunity to assess these students each day that they're there, instead of trying to do a self-assessment, which in our building is pretty much useless because of the low attendance. We don't have very many that have high attendance. So that's why I chose the question. I initially wanted to do the question, what does effective formative assessment look like in a special education setting, but I can't find enough research on it. So I settled for the next best thing, and in my paper here, you will find out about. First, I would like to start with the question, what does research say about formative assessment? There's lots of articles, there have been lots of studies done on this, and I have a quick highlight of a few things that I found very interesting and that will be beneficial in my classroom. The first one is it increases student motivation, and this is especially true given that feedback is done correctly. We'll talk about feedback a little bit later. It helps you find gaps early, so instead of going through an entire unit just to find out what they didn't learn, you can find what they're not learning before you move on to the next thing. So that's what I call the gaps. It requires the teacher to adjust instruction, so it's not something where you can just go through your instruction and go. You need to adjust it, because your formative assessments are going to show you that pieces are missing, or maybe they know things you thought they didn't know, so you can maybe skip some things. It ensures that students are meeting the SLOs, and I wrote on here feedback, super important, and how it is done, how it's presented to the students. It kind of makes all the difference in the world, especially with my students, because most of their feedback they get in life is negative feedback. So I've learned some skills on how to turn that around and keep it more positive. Focus on growth versus what you do and don't know, which brings us to the next one. It focuses on the growth mindset. And last is it makes a summative assessment more meaningful. You can say when you get to your summative assessment that you knew what the students were learning, whether or not they were learning it as you went along throughout that course. One of the most useful things that I have found while doing this research is different strategies that people use. There's many of them listed on here. We have exit cards, whiteboards, popsicle sticks, objectives grid, daily scorecard, 3 quick questions, some trivia. Feel free to look up any of that online. It will be in my report. These are all very time-efficient, effective ways to measure what the students are learning. There's no right or wrong way to do it. What I have learned from all this research is that to keep it simple so that you can effectively use it as a teacher, so it doesn't become too time-consuming, and if it becomes too time-consuming and too much work, you end up not using it anyhow. So it has to be simple, and it has to be effective. Those are the key things to having an effective strategy. One of the keys to effective formative assessment is how feedback should be given. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but here are 5 of the key ways that feedback should be given. It needs to be given immediately or as soon as possible. With students in our building, we're really trying to modify behavior, so immediately is when I need to be giving feedback. If I give it the next day or the next class, there's a really high percentage chance that they don't even remember it. Needs to be specific. So kind of like when you're giving somebody a compliment, you say, hey, you look great today. It's a lot specific if you say, wow, I really like that outfit, it looks nice with your hair, etc., etc. The feedback should also be clear to the learning targets. I usually have all the learning goals posted on my whiteboard. So if I can give that feedback, pertain it to the learning target, they can start to see that connection, that they are learning what I am posting on the board. Another important aspect of feedback is effective error correction. There's a lot of detail about this, but you don't want to do the try again or you're close or things like that, because it can more often than not lead to misconceptions instead of actual learning. And last, but probably the most important, is it needs to be a risk-free and feedback-safe classroom. It means the students, all of the students, need to feel comfortable receiving feedback and participating in these formative assessments. If they feel like they're being judged or that people are saying, oh, you're dumb because you don't know this, then it's going to be a big struggle and it's not going to be as effective. The last piece of information I want to present is some of the challenges of doing formative assessment. It's a new way of thinking, especially for teachers that follow curriculum and just go right down the line, checking each day off as they go, covering each set of material. You need to think of it as they are growing. We need to make sure that we close all these gaps and that students make great progress. It's a big adjustment to instruction in that you have to sometimes rebuild the wheel. You need to go back, but okay, where did we go wrong here? How are we going to get these kids caught up to this? And it can be time consuming. I don't believe it will be once a teacher gets practiced in a lot, when they get a lot of experience with it. You will lose some instruction time because you're going to spend time on things that the students missed. So really it's not lost instruction time, it's just you don't cover as much. The next one is it requires more participation of the student. Depending on students you have, that could be more challenging for them. If you have low participation students, formative assessment is a great way to get them into more participation, building their self-esteem and confidence. And one of the best pieces of advice to seriously implementing formative assessment is to start slow. Maybe just do one class, do one simple strategy, try it for a trimester or quarter, whatever the school runs, and see how it works. Then kind of rethink it, maybe add another class the next time. But start slow so you don't get overwhelmed, so you don't end up pulling a whole bunch of data that just overwhelms you and you don't do anything with it. Thank you for watching my presentation.